Hello there. Welcome into a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, whether you're listening online at the newly revamped extrasports1300.com. Check that out when you have some time. Or whether you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, Mental Health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts. The conversation this week has been fantastic. Now, it helps out the level of conversation when there's something to talk about, and there's been many somethings to talk about. And I look forward to continuing that conversation. You can call or text the show at 719-247-1313. Now that things have settled down a bit in NBA free agency, although I don't believe that the Nuggets are done, more on that later. But now people are kind of coming out from all of this and going, and I think it's a natural question to ponder. Why didn't they just do this stuff before? I mean, what was Calvin Booth doing the last couple of years that he couldn't have pulled off what Ben Tenzer and John Wallace have pulled off over the last few days? And I get it. It's natural to ask that question, and I think given what Ben Tenzer and John Wallace have done, Calvin Booth has become a bit of a punching bag over the last couple of days, maybe even more so than he was when he was employed by the Denver Nuggets. But the simple reason is, and I'm not trying to remove any blame from Calvin Booth here, it's timing. That's what it all comes down to. I mean, some people may not grasp this. You obviously understand this. The only reason that the Denver Nuggets were able to get Jonas Valanciunas and Tim Hardaway and a player to be named later that I think they might be angling for is because of the Michael Porter Jr. trade. Right? And certainly trading Michael Porter is not a new idea. Certainly plenty of people have been clamoring for it. You have probably been clamoring for it. But the timing wasn't right for two reasons. One is not Calvin Booth's fault. The other is. Reason number one, not Calvin Booth's fault, the Brooklyn Nets overvalued Cam Johnson. They thought this season, in the middle of the season, they were going to flip him. So it's not like they just now decided that they were going to trade him. Sean Marks had an open dialogue with Cam Johnson for a year about the possibility of trading him. In fact, that's something Cam Johnson has said in interviews after being acquired by the Denver Nuggets, is just how much he appreciates the open dialogue that he has had with Sean Marks. The problem is the Brooklyn Nets, as recently as the trade deadline, wanted multiple first-round picks. They wanted too much. As we tend to see around the trade deadline, right? You look around, there are so many teams trying to buy, you think it's a seller's market, so you jack up the price. But ultimately, the Nets failed in that endeavor to get a ton of draft capital back. So now that the market told them what Cam Johnson was worth, their asking price went down. They still wanted a pick, and I think it will turn out to be a valuable pick, but who cares what is going to happen in the NBA in the decade of the 2030s? Right? I'm not trying to. I saw a tweet today that we're closer to 2050 than 2000 anymore, and I fell to my knees in my office. Like, I don't need to look any more into the future than right now, than the next minute, the next hour, the next 3 hours of my day. But I do think that the Brooklyn Nets came away with potentially a very valuable draft pick. And who's to say they can't spin off Michael Porter at the trade deadline if he's healthy, which, as you know, is a little bit of a moving target with him. So that's not Calvin Booth's fault. The Nets overvalued their own asset, their own player. Teams do it all the time. The Denver Nuggets have done this. So the timing was right for Ben Tenzer and John Wallace to pick up the phone, to call Sean Marks and say, okay, because don't think for a second that the idea of trading Michael Porter for Cam Johnson just popped into the collective heads of the Nuggets front office. Right? Did they have a great desire to midway through the season, in the offseason, a year ago? I don't know. But you don't think, and you've seen the highlights of Cam Johnson, you've read about Cam Johnson, maybe you've watched Cam Johnson, you don't think that the idea of swapping out Michael Porter for Cam Johnson was at least intriguing to the Denver Nuggets? Of course it was. But after the Brooklyn Nets failed to recoup what they thought Cam Johnson was worth, the asking price came down, and to Ben Tenzer and John Wallace's credit, maybe on a group conference call or group text, I still don't know how all of that works, called up Sean Marks, and the Brooklyn Nets were willing to move Cam Johnson. Now, here's the second part that I do think is Calvin Booth's fault. Michael Porter was his guy. Because of the fit with Jokic, Calvin Booth loved Michael Porter Jr. And I understand why, right? The skill set, a guy that doesn't, can just be a catch and shoot guy. I mean, look at what the Nuggets have done, especially with the addition of Tim Hardaway. Like, that skill set is valuable. And it goes back to something I said a few weeks ago about how the Denver Nuggets have overvalued their own players, much like the Brooklyn Nets overvalued Cam Johnson. The difference is the Nuggets overvalue their guys to the point that they give them massive extensions or have no interest in trading them, instead of just asking for the moon when a team calls trying to trade for them. So Calvin Booth loved Michael Porter. So the why of Porter getting shipped and not Jamal Murray, I think there's your answer. Because one of the biggest proponents of Michael Porter in that building was Calvin Booth. So it's timing, but it's also, an affinity for one player over another. I'll tell you, Michael Malone loves Jamal Murray. Calvin Booth tried to trade him multiple times. So these thoughts from the Denver Nuggets that they have finally been able to act on over the last few days. Like, you don't get any credit for thinking something, but the idea of trading Michael Porter or Jamal Murray did enter into the thoughts of Calvin Booth. Now, how motivated he was to trade one over the other is another story, but the Nuggets knew, given the financial restrictions they found themselves in, that they were built wrong, and Josh Kroenke has been upfront about that. They were built under a different financial set of rules. So clearly the Denver Nuggets knew that eventually they would have to move on from either Jamal Murray or Michael Porter. That's all that makes sense. They're never moving Jokic. And Aaron Gordon, to his credit, and it's maybe part of the reason why it's not him that got shipped out, took a hometown discount. He signed, look at Aaron Gordon's contract. He makes $22 million. Aaron Gordon, for everything he means to the Denver Nuggets, he's getting paid $22 million. He is a steal. So it had to be Porter Murray. And with one of Michael Porter's biggest proponents out of the building, it cleared the path. But the timing was there. You know, that it takes two to make a trade, right? The Brooklyn Nets asking price had to come down, and the Denver Nuggets had to be finally willing to move on from one of those two guys. And you've seen what this has unlocked. Jonas Valanciunas, Tim Hardaway Jr., and maybe more. The Nuggets are now built correctly. They now fit the financial restrictions that are in place. So this feeling that the Denver Nuggets have, that they can go out and add pieces and, Stan Kroenke's happy because he's not going to have to be writing checks for basically double all these players' salary, or not double the players' salary, but dollar for dollar, how far they are into the apron, all that kind of stuff. Stan Kroenke's happy. Josh Kroenke's happy. Ben 10. Everybody's happy. You're happy. The Denver Nuggets are operating under the new financial rules, and yet they're still able to add. But remember this feeling. Remember this feeling in a couple of years. Because Christian Braun is going to be due to be paid soon. Cam Johnson is set to become a free agent at the same time Michael Porter is. What the Denver Nuggets cannot do is lock themselves back into what they have been the last 2 years. Tim Hardaway and Jonas Valanciunas are not long for the Denver Nuggets, but if the Denver Nuggets want to be able to keep doing this as need be, they have to resist the urge to essentially take Michael Porter Jr.'s money and hand it to Christian Braun or Cam Johnson. As much as maybe they would love to pay those two guys, they can't. They can't. Jokic, Murray. Or they could actually pay those two guys, but they even better find a trade partner for Jamal Murray. You can only have two of these guys that are making $30+ million. It just, the math doesn't work. And if this trend of needing depth to compete remains a thing a year from now, 2 years from now, it's better for the Nuggets to have the financial flexibility that they now have. Josh Kroenke has talked about how the easiest free agent, they have the easiest free agent pitch ever. You get to play with Nikola Jokic. Yeah, but you also have to be able to pay people. And then the Denver Nuggets over the last 2 years really didn't. So as much as the Cam Johnson acquisition should be celebrated, and as much as Christian Braun has improved as a player, and maybe there's more improvement that he will make this year. Two guys can be compensated supermax, max, whatever contract they're eligible for. Everybody else, they got to take Aaron Gordon type deals, or you need to look elsewhere because you're going to handcuff yourself again. And then here's where Josh Kroenke's comment, still don't know why he had to go this far, but the Nikola, I would have to contemplate trading 15. Okay, then don't sign Christian Braun or Cam Johnson to the highest dollar amount you possibly can, unless you're willing to now part with Jamal Murray. And I don't know how this front office feels about Jamal Murray, and it really doesn't matter at this point because the Denver Nuggets don't, unless we're talking about a pie in the sky Giannis LeBron type trade, they have no reason now to move on from Jamal Murray. But this is better, isn't it? The way they did it before was good, right? It got them a title. Then the rules changed. Now they have to function like everybody else. And you're seeing it with Boston right now. They're just shedding players. Nuggets, you don't want the Nuggets to be in that position again. As much as Cam Johnson and Christian Braun may contribute to the next Denver Nuggets title, you can't overvalue your guys. You can't put yourself in this position again. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on Nuggets free agency. Again, I don't think they are done. Give you a couple names a little bit later. See what you think of them. And also on a Nuggets topic, does David Adelman now have a ton of pressure on him, given what this front office has done to begin free agency? Just getting going on this Wednesday edition of the show. Coming up next, we head down the hallway at Ball Arena. Still nothing to report from the Colorado Avalanche. We continue Ehlers Watch next on Extra Sports 1300. Happy birthday, America. Celebrate big with a chance at $5,000 in the Red, White, and Win giveaway. Head to extrasports1300.com now to enter this national contest, sponsored locally by H&H Tires and Window Nation. We continue the first full day of Ehlers Watch. We are late to the party when it comes to Ehlers Watch because we weren't watching for Nikolai Ehlers, the free agent winger from the Winnipeg Jets, as a potential signing by the Colorado Avalanche, but his name has been bandied about. And now it appears that he has narrowed his search. Some NHL insiders saying the decision could be made today. Others going so far, like Frank Cervalli of TSN, saying that he is focusing on Cervalli, not Ehlers. Cervalli is focusing on the Carolina Hurricanes and what was the other team? Washington Capitals. Now, again, it's important to note that's not him saying that's who Ehlers is down to. That's who he is hypothesizing that Ehlers is down to. Well, we talked about this yesterday. Nikolai Ehlers, hey, if the dude wants to take a 1-year prove-it deal because he's not getting the money that he wants, then yeah, sure, Avs, sign him up. But where this makes more sense is if the Avalanche feel that Ehlers is easier to sign to a multi-year deal than Marty Necas is. And you would almost, what the Avalanche need to do in free agency, they'll almost do it backwards. Right? The idea going in was they're going to use the cap space they cleared on Friday to sign depth pieces and round out the roster. Now it's and by the way, extend Marty Necas. Now it's, well, maybe they'll sign Ehlers and spin off Marty Necas in order to acquire the depth pieces they need to fill out their roster. I would say that I think that the Avalanche are going to have to figure this thing out with Marty Necas. That's my gut feeling, is that Ehlers is going to go for a hefty price tag to a team not named the Colorado Avalanche. But we'll see. As it's been well chronicled the last couple of days, my feeling about things around the Avalanche and the Denver Nuggets has been a little bit off lately. But let's play the Ehlers game here. So if you sign Nikolai Ehlers to be a top 6 winger, he is older, a little bit more injury prone than Marty Necas. But if you put him next to Nathan MacKinnon, he'll be just fine. Right? The injuries thing is real, and Nathan MacKinnon can't protect him from injury, but any discrepancy in production or anything that anyone may point out, I think can be made up playing next to Nathan MacKinnon. I'm more curious about what you could get for Marty Necas in a free agent year. Could the Avalanche call up Kevin Adams in Buffalo? Chris McFarland and Kevin Adams have done business before, recently. And Chris McFarland can say to Kevin Adams, what you have are a plethora of defensemen, young defensemen. What you don't have are goal scorers. We are kind of in the opposite, kind of in a different boat, just the reverse of you. We just signed Ehlers. We feel like our top six is good. We need some help on the blue line. So let's make a deal here. Buffalo gets a player in Natchez who I think still fits their timeline. They have some of the players that they have brought in, like Alex Tuck, I'm thinking of, that as the Sabres have kind of stumbled their way to try and figure out how to get into the postseason, all of a sudden, Alex Tuck is like 29 years old. So Natchez, a little bit younger, maybe has a chance to be a part of the next Buffalo Sabres playoff team. And I don't even know that you would be giving up Alex Tuck in such a deal. If I'm Chris McFarland, I ask for it because you still need depth. But could there be a fit there? But the centerpiece of the deal being Bo Byram. You have Dahlin, you have Owen Power. Those two guys are obviously the future's brighter. Not to say it's not bright for Bo Byram, because I still believe in Bo Byram. I still think he's going to be a very good defenseman in this league. But he's not Dahlin. He's not Owen Power, which is okay. So could that kind of a trade work? I can see that. But are you going to be able to get depth pieces back as well and make it all fit within your salary cap table? The latest that I have heard from Kevin Adams, not speaking to him directly, but Kevin Adams says that they will match any offer sheet Bo Byram gets. So that kind of takes away the idea that the Avalanche can just out and out sign Bo Byram, sign him to an offer sheet. Now, it would, by the way, cost picks for the Avs, but Chris McFarland is kind of in that Les Snead mode right now. That would not be an issue if the Avalanche had to part with draft picks. But Buffalo has said they're going to match any offer, which makes sense because if you're Buffalo, the last thing you need are future draft picks. You need guys that can help move the needle now. But what does Bo Byram command in a contract? It would be essentially a sign and trade, right? You'd have to, and maybe you'd have to sign Natchez to an extension to make it all work. But Bo Byram, I think you look at what Keandre Miller just signed for with the Carolina Hurricanes. I mean, you're talking $8.5, $9 million a year. Are the Avs going to want to go for that? It's a lot for a guy who is not going to be one of your top two defensemen. And it makes it more difficult because if you sign Ehlers at, I mean, the Avs have, let's say, what, 7, 8 million in cap space. And you're going to bring in a player that's maybe worth 10. The math doesn't math there. And forget the Ehlers of it all. So I just say all that to say it would be much easier if the Colorado Avalanche just figured out whatever the deal is with Marty Natchez and any hesitation he may have when it comes to signing an extension. Got to push through that. Got to push through that. You don't need that to be a storyline going into this season, right? Another due to become an unrestricted free agent, top 6 winger that the Avalanche are negotiating with. They got the chance here They signed up Brock Nelson. They get Gabriel Landeskog back. Valerian Nichushkin stayed out of trouble once he returned last year. So it's like you have so many good things going for you. And now you're going to be dragging a contract extension discussion into the season with the idea that you may have to trade Necas at the deadline. Which I think you can only go that well so often before you look at your return and like, we didn't get back what we got the last time, which I think is going to be the case. What the Avs got for Mikko Rantanen, I don't think they're going to get for Marty Necas. Maybe it's only slightly less, but it will be less. And this is a team that cannot keep taking diminishing returns as they try to win a Stanley Cup. So the Ehlers thing, we'll see. Maybe the reason for the delay is he's not getting what he's looking for. Could be one of two things, right? Either he's getting so many offers from these teams, especially the ones that lost out on Mitch Marner, or we're wishing they got, we're wishing about Mitch Marner, but knew they had no realistic shot. And they're all offering Nikolai Ehlers a bunch of money as the top winger. And don't forget Brock Besser of Vancouver didn't even get to free agency. Neither did Brad Marchand. So the top 6 caliber winger market dried up before free agency even opened. So maybe it's not the teams in the Marner sweepstakes. Maybe it's the teams that were looking at Brad Marchand or certainly Brock Besser. I think Brock Besser is a better comp for Nikolai Ehlers. Is he sifting through so many offers, or is he looking at the offers and going, this is not what I want? Maybe I'll go and win a Stanley Cup, take a little bit less money, go win a Stanley Cup. And then if you're Jared Bednar, what a nice problem to have. Nikolai Ehlers taking a 1-year deal. Marty Necas, I don't know how the Avalanche figure all of that out, but one can dream. Hey, given what free agency period the Denver Nuggets have had, if you're an Avs fan, go ahead and dream of Nikolai Ehlers taking pennies on the dollar for 1 year to get back into the free agent market. Although, have you seen some of the names that are set to become free agents in 2026? Wow. Might not be better for Nikolai Ehlers a year from now. So we'll see. We're all still waiting. My guess is Nikolai Ehlers will not be a member of the Colorado Avalanche, and they'll just have to figure it out with Marty Necas, but we'll see what happens. 719-24-7-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. Pro rodeo champions from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico are coming to Colorado Springs next week, July 8th through the 12th, for the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo. And with payouts at over $1 million, the competition will be fierce. Check it out by getting your tickets at pikespeakorbust.org. Meanwhile, here's another aspect of the Avalanche appearing to be on the sidelines in NHL free agency. Because meanwhile, there are depth forwards that are going off the board. Cody Glass re-signed today with the Devils. Gustav Nyquist just signed with Winnipeg. And Pius Suter is going to St. Louis after they lost Faxa to Dallas. So I don't want nobody should get super, bent out of shape about the fact that the Avalanche haven't secured third and fourth line wingers. Well, they have fourth line wingers, third line wingers just yet, right? It's not necessary. There are some internal options and things like that. But while they're doing whatever it is that they're doing regarding maybe Marty Necas, Nikolai Ehlers, guys that could help their depth play on that third line that looks right now to be just Ross Colton, those guys are going off the board. Jonathan Duran, of course, went to the Islanders the other day on a 2-year deal. So an already pretty shallow talent pool is getting more of the water drained as we go along. And that would apply to anybody who's monitoring the Ehlers situation. Although if he's going to end up going to Carolina, they got the Keandre Miller deal done. So it's possible to do both at the same time, but the Avs aren't. Seems like they're focused on a thing. What is that? Maybe we'll find out. This text coming in from a Sabres fan. Just tuning in, I'm a Sabres fan. Are you hearing rumors of a trade? No. The only thing that I have heard, I've heard that teams are trying to trade for Bo Byram. And there are no shortage of teams that are interested in Bo Byram's services, but nothing like, Team X is close and they're offering this, that, or the other. Just that there are a handful of teams that are interested in Bo Byram. I have presented the offer sheet route, given how the Avalanche do not care about draft picks. But Kevin Adams, the one thing that is actually news is that Kevin Adams says they'll match any offer sheet that Bo Byram receives, and that should make you somewhat happy. Because from the 709, Sabres don't need picks. They need NHL caliber players, depth, and guys to play in Rochester on the farm team. I would probably say in that order, though, yes. But here's Kevin Adams saying, no, we'll just keep Bo Byram. If you want Bo Byram, you got a deal for him. But doesn't my scenario, forgetting about the cap for a second, and I know that's everything, but just from a fit perspective, Marty Necas goes to Buffalo, Bo Byram goes to the Avs. At least as the centerpieces of the deal. Now, what Buffalo would have to deal with is getting Marty Necas to sign an extension in Buffalo. So obviously a lot of moving parts, and I always think too far through these things. Like, it's just much more fun to just throw out Bo Byram for Marty Necas and the Avs sign Nikolai Ehlers, who says no. It's a curse, I tell you. But if the Avs bring in Nikolai Ehlers, then I think that it would make a lot of sense to call up Kevin Adams and say you could get a bona fide scoring wing, a veteran player, and you give us a player out of your surplus. Because that's one thing Buffalo has. They have defensemen. Which is funny because they traded Casey Middlestat to get Bo Byram, and now you look at the roster and like, they probably don't need as much on the blue line as they have right now. I mean, they could keep it, but if you're going to get better, that's what you're going to have to sacrifice. It's a wonder that Kevin Adams hasn't been able to put together a roster that's made the playoffs in forever. Sorry. Don't mean to. You deserve a team in the playoffs. If you're a Sabres fan, and I know Red Wings fans deserve to have a team back in the postseason. Buffalo deserves to have a team in the postseason. They do. They just, especially the team in Detroit, doesn't deserve to win a Stanley Cup. I think we can all agree on that. This coming in from the 719, it was sent to me as I was talking. I mentioned in passing that unless the Nuggets are going to move Jamal Murray in a Giannis or LeBron type deal, then there's no real reason at this point, in my mind, with the job that Ben Tenzer and John Wallace have done, to entertain trading Jamal Murray. Because you've already done the financial thing that you needed to do by trading Michael Porter. And I've always been, one of those guys has got to go. I don't know that I want both of them unless the return I put Michael Porter, use Jamal Murray to kind of fit financially a little bit more, get some young up and coming players, and then use Michael Porter to lure to entice Phoenix to give you Kevin Durant. Obviously, none of that worked out. So the same logic would apply. You move Michael Porter to create space, give you flexibility to add free agents, and you hang on to Jamal Murray unless you get that, bona fide all-star, all-time great player like a Giannis or LeBron. And just got the link sent to me from the Sporting News. And as I go there, and I figured this was going to be the case. So I followed the link, I read it. They do this in print, in online media. The blogs, if you will. They do this. So-and-so thinks that the Nuggets could move Jamal Murray for LeBron James. But they present it as if this is like a piece of news. Right, that the Nuggets are contemplating this. We have no idea that they're contemplating this, but it's presented in such a way, and then you click the link to the actual thought piece, and that's all it is. It's a thought piece. Best destinations for LeBron. Number 1, Denver Nuggets. By the way, agree with him. But that doesn't mean that the Nuggets are thinking about it or that the Lakers would do it or that LeBron would want to come to Denver. So, but yes, if those other boxes are checked, Jamal Murray for LeBron James, I do that 100% without question. If Rob Pelinka calls up Ben Tenzer or John Wallace, again, I don't know whose number Rob Pelinka has, but he has one of their numbers. Although this might be a Josh Kroenke level thing. Rob Pelinka calls a 303 area code, let's say that, and says, I'm willing to give you LeBron. Say less. Say less. Well, actually, no. Say more. You don't want Jokic, do you? Okay, now say less. We're good to go. Yeah, Jamal Murray for LeBron James. I do that all day, every day. Now, but here's the thing, transitioning over to the LeBron and Giannis saga, both of their stories have reached a similar point. Have you noticed Shams was just reporting that Giannis is now monitoring what the Bucks are doing, much like LeBron is monitoring. They're both monitoring. They're both going to see what the Lakers and the Bucks do and then see if it pleases them. And if it doesn't, then you could see one of them moved by the end of the summer. Think about Kawhi going to the Raptors. Like, that would be their thought process. This team is mostly put together. I like that team better. I can win there. Let's make it happen. Especially LeBron being a pending free agent now. And reporting from ESPN says the Lakers are treating him as such. He's an expiring contract. But here's the thing with Giannis and LeBron. They want to play for championship contenders. Okay. How many of them exist in the NBA for this year, really and truly? For this year, how many exist? The Boston Celtics. I like the Celtics more than other people do. I don't think you can completely write off Boston, but you can't say that they're a bona fide title contender, at least until you see what else Brad Stevens has in store. Indiana, you could lump into that group once Tyrese Halliburton is healthy again. So really, what are you looking at if you're Giannis and LeBron? In the West, you have Oklahoma City, who will not do anything. They will not try to trade for Giannis and LeBron, so they're out, but they're one of the championship contenders. Houston, we are told, has the ability to swing a trade for another superstar. So there's Houston. Although would Giannis or LeBron love the inevitable blowback if they decided to play with Kevin Durant? That's a super team. Light-ish. But Houston's one, has the ability to do it. Denver is one, now has the financial flexibility and a massive contract in Jamal Murray that they can move. And Minnesota, I think, is a title contender. And then in the East, you have New York. That you could see Giannis or LeBron being in title contention playing for that team. That's it. So, like, this idea that they want to play for a championship contender, like, I get it, but not many of them exist. And that's not even taking into account what those teams will have to give up. It's part of the reason why the writer for Bleacher Report is 100% right. The best landing spot for LeBron is Denver. And I said this before the Cam Johnson. I was saying it as the Cam Johnson news broke. Essentially, a LeBron for Jamal Murray swap. You absolutely can't argue that the Nuggets are further away from winning a title. And I would say they're even closer to winning a title if you replace Jamal Murray with LeBron James. And because of Jamal Murray's contract, you would make up most of the difference in salaries. So now you're throwing in, I think the Bleacher Report suggested Peyton Watson, but throw in Watson or Julian Strawther. And if it's getting LeBron, I don't dismiss out of hand trading Christian Brown. It's not my first choice, but I don't dismiss it out of hand. You look at these other teams, Jalen, just look at it this way. Forget all the other pieces on the roster for just a moment. Just take into account the duo. Right? Kevin Durant, LeBron James in Houston. Kevin Durant, or LeBron James, Jalen Brunson in New York. LeBron James, Nikola Jokic in Denver. All good options. There's one that's better than the others. So the way I'm kind of feeling about this is every day that goes by, I kind of think that one of them is getting traded. But it's only going to be one. The idea that Giannis and LeBron are going to be moved in the same offseason, there's no way. There's no way both of them are moving. So that leaves one of them goes and the other one doesn't. I don't know who that is. It sure seems like there's much more drama around LeBron right now than there is Giannis. Cleveland is another one. My apologies. Cleveland would be, it just popped into my head. Cleveland would be a team that would be a title contender with either LeBron or Giannis. But again, what? Darius Garland and LeBron? Yeah, Denver's the best landing spot. And Denver, they're riding high right now. They don't have to think about moving Jamal Murray. But the way they're feeling right now, why not ride the hot hand? 719-247-1313. Speaking of the Nuggets, we'll come back down to earth just a little bit because I don't think that the Nuggets are done. I don't. Who could they be targeting? And did the Nuggets kind of bail on the whole developing young talent thing? That's next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in. Glad to have you. Appreciate you listening to the show or watching and listening to the show, which you can do on our social media platforms at XTRA Sports 1300. You can even interact with the show there. And I can do a fancy thing, especially on Facebook. But X works too. You can reply, and I can put it up on the screen and be like, so-and-so says. Technology, it's amazing. Or you could reach out the older-fashioned way. I don't know that text is old-fashioned. 719-247-1313. It's been a crazy start to free agency for the Denver Nuggets. Many Nuggets fans are kind of coming down off the high. But I don't think that the Nuggets are done yet. I don't. And they have a $14 million exception that they are free to use if they choose. One name that I have heard is Al Horford. Now, there's a lot of competition for Al Horford's services. The Lakers are reportedly in on him, although it seems like they're going to land DeAndre Ayton here pretty soon, if they haven't already. Golden State has been rumored probably the most with Al Horford, so I don't know if the Nuggets are going to be able to outbid those teams for Al Horford's services, but the same logic I applied to LeBron, I'll apply to Al Horford. Golden State's great. Steph Curry's great. Warriors are a good team. Nuggets are better. Jokic is better. It will be interesting to see if, Al Horford, maybe not the most prized, maybe a Giannis or a LeBron, knowing that they are going to somewhat dictate where they end up, probably completely dictate where they end up. It would be nice to see, like, I see the Tim Hardaway move and, Russell Westbrook, and these are nice moves at the time, but they're not the idea of playing with the best player in the world. Like, we haven't seen it hit big for the Denver Nuggets yet. And Al Horford, given the number of teams that are interested in him and given how he has contributed to the Boston Celtics the last few years, that would be a pretty big get. I think it would. Not LeBron Giannis, but probably the biggest get that the Nuggets have gotten via free agency, right? And Al Horford would fit in so well with the Nuggets. You kidding me? Put him next to the new Big Val in Denver, Jonas Valanciunas. Play him with Nikola Jokic. You may be saying that's too many big men. No such thing. No such thing. You want all the bigs you can get. Look at Dallas. Now, I know what they did to procure the plethora of big men that they currently have. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, look at Dallas. It doesn't excuse what they did, but you look at it and you're like, it's not bad. Right? It's not bad. Now they had to be gifted the number one pick. Cooper Flagg being in the mix is certainly a needle mover. But you look at it, you look at a team like Dallas, look at what Boston was with Porzingis and Horford and others. Isn't it crazy that the Denver Nuggets have had the best best player in the world, but certainly the best big man in the world. And they have not been able to even get a halfway decent second big. Not even a halfway decent one. I love DeAndre Jordan as much as the next guy, but his best years were behind him when he arrived in Denver. Dario Saric is slowly but surely being wiped from Nuggets fans' minds as days go on. And you want to really cap off the free agency period if you're Ben Tenzer and John Wallace. How about finding a taker for Zeke Naji? So it's kind of crazy to me that the Nuggets have had the best at that position and have had no one else until now with Jonas Valanciunas. But you can never have enough bigs. Al Horford, come on down. I totally see why the Denver Nuggets would be interested in him. Now, lesser names that aren't going to excite you, especially now that the newness of the Nuggets actually making moves is starting to wear off. I don't know that them landing Malcolm Brogdon, you're going to go, whoa, the way you did when they brought in Valanciunas or even Tim Hardaway for that matter. But Malcolm Brogdon's a name out there. Spencer Dinwiddie, he's a buff. He signed a one-year deal with Charlotte. So he's going to be on another team by the trade deadline. Book that. But a lot of the names left that the Nuggets could be interested in, yeah, they might help the Denver Nuggets, but getting somebody like Al Horford, that would be more in line with what the Nuggets have been doing. The Nuggets offseason right now has just been banger after banger after banger. And you get Al Horford, and that would be right in line with that. Malcolm Brogdon, like, okay, that's fine. Al Horford would be a big get. So that's one name to kind of keep an eye on. But whether it's Spencer Dinwiddie or Malcolm Brogdon or Al Horford, that's another vet added to a team that was supposed to be all in on developing their young players. Already you have brought in Tim Hart, like Bruce Brown, that's just Russell Westbrook. Now you can say that bringing back Bruce Brown does not necessarily show that the Nuggets are all in on developing their young players. You could certainly say that, but the minutes, he's not taking any of the young guys' minutes that they had last year. He's taking Russell Westbrook's. Right? That's who he's replacing. Well, you just bring in Tim Hardaway. And even with Jonas Valanciunas, it's like it's DeAndre Jordan and Dario Saric minutes. Maybe he gets a few more, but that's the role he's fitting. When you bring in Tim Hardaway, it's like, well, that's going to come at the expense of one of these young players. And if the Nuggets aren't done, that's another one. So what happened to developing the young talent? I have a theory. Would you like to hear it? It's not to say that the Denver Nuggets are bailing on Calvin Booth's vision, right? What Calvin Booth has laid out as the way to sustain their championship window. They're not bailing on that. But there are levels to this. There's levels to that buy-in, right? There's levels to how much you're willing to invest time into these younger players. And I think given where the Nuggets were, right? Go back a year, go back 2 years. Right? They weren't in the position to add veterans. They added outside of, they got Dario Saric and Russell Westbrook, but these are very small contracts to these veteran players to make the moves. They weren't in a position to make the moves the last 2 years that they made this offseason. So I'm starting to wonder if maybe how much they bang the drum of developing the young players was out of necessity, right? We can't improve our team in another way because Calvin Booth doesn't want to trade Michael Porter. Michael Malone doesn't want to get rid of Jamal Murray. So they were unwilling or maybe to some degree unable to move those players. Certainly with Jamal Murray, if you believe the reports that the Nuggets tried to move him this offseason. But given the way they were constructed, without being able to move out Murray or Porter, they were stuck. But they still had young players on the roster. They could still add young players to the roster through the draft. So I'm not saying it was completely lip service, but it was the Nuggets' reality. And I think that that's what we're starting to find out now that the Nuggets have that financial flexibility. Is like, yeah, we want to develop the young guys. Yeah, we still think that Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, certainly Deron Holmes, he hasn't even stepped on an NBA regular season court yet. We still think there's something there. Let's not forget that Ben Tenzer was in this organization. Yeah, he was with the G League team, but Josh Kroenke and like they still like those players. But it's amazing what the true vision of the Denver Nuggets kind of comes out in an offseason like this, right? Once they open up the space by trading Michael Porter, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we like our young guys, but veteran player. Veteran player. Oh, we could trade for Jonas Valanciunas? Yeah, we'll do that. So it's not that they're abandoning it. It's not that they were lying. It was just the reality that they were in. And now that they aren't stuck in cap prison, they're looking at their roster and then they're looking at the free agent market and they're going, do we want do we want to rely on Julian Strawther to knock down some threes? Or do we want to rely on a guy who on the biggest of NBA stages went on a heater for the ages in Tim Hardaway? Yeah, we'll take Tim Hardaway. Coming off of an ACL injury or Achilles, excuse me, do we want to bet on Deron Holmes? Do we want to go back to Zeke Naji? Or do we want to trade for Jonas Valanciunas? So with the flexibility, I think you're really seeing that this youth movement, the supplementing the roster with these young players, it's something they want to do. They understand the value of it, but if you give them the choice, Bruce Brown on a vet minimum or Jalen Pickett, they're taking Bruce Brown. Julian Strawther's continued development or Tim Hardaway Jr. Trying to make the $8 million salary of Zeke Naji work or bring in Jonas Valanciunas. And what's kind of interesting about the whole thing is that I think that the Nuggets do have a chance to kind of live in a middle ground where they're kind of doing both. Now, can they do both to the utmost effectiveness? I doubt it. You're going to have to sacrifice something along the way, but they can still have an eye towards developing these young players while still bringing in veterans. They can try to balance the two, but it's kind of a middle ground between Calvin Booth, who wanted all the young players, and Michael Malone, who wanted only veterans. Like there was a middle ground that existed. They just needed to get along long enough to be able to strike while the iron's hot, and when Cam Johnson became available from the Brooklyn Nets for a far reduced price than what he was at the trade deadline. The middle ground existed. Think Michael Malone and Calvin Booth are kicking themselves a little bit right now, seeing what is happening with the Denver Nuggets? Think that they are. Especially given the fact that Michael Malone will not be employed by an NBA team as a head coach this season, because the Knicks have made their decision, and it wasn't Michael Malone. I'll tell you what it was next on Extra Sports 1300. Celebrate the Switchbacks Independence Day fireworks spectacular with a 360-degree immersive experience from the field after the Switchbacks take on Louisville City. Make sure you're there at 6 p.m. as the first 2,000 fans through the gates will get a limited edition Switchbacks bucket hat. Tickets will sell out. Get yours at switchbacksfc.com. So we can put to bed all this LeBron stuff, right? It is official that DeAndre Ayton is going to be a member of the Los Angeles Lakers. Surely that was all LeBron was waiting for. Something tells me it's not. And it's not even necessarily because DeAndre Ayton doesn't fill a need for the Los Angeles Lakers. He does. And offensively, I still think that DeAndre Ayton has some game. Defensively, he's god-awful. Remember when the Nuggets played the Suns on their way to the NBA title? The conversation, and this is like code, when a team or a center on another team is talked about in the way that DeAndre Ayton was, and we've seen it before. I think they even talked about Chet this way. If he can wear down Jokic on the other end of the floor, like, not that he's going to do anything defensively against Nikola Jokic, but if he can work Nikola Jokic a little bit on the other end of the floor, maybe that will be just as good. That's the way that DeAndre Ayton was talked about. Wasn't his defense. Now, to be fair, you could say that almost about any center in the NBA, that defending Nikola Jokic is a fool's errand. But people really leaned into it with DeAndre Ayton, which told me he has no defensive game, but he can do some things on the offensive end. It's not a bad move for the Los Angeles Lakers. It's not. And it's an upgrade over Czech's notes, no center at all. But I don't know that LeBron all of a sudden is like, yeah, this is it, championship team. Various reports, Al Horford getting closer with the Golden State Warriors. We'll see if that's done. The Lakers reportedly aren't out on Al Horford because they signed DeAndre Ayton, to my earlier point, can never have enough bigs. And moving to the NHL, Nikolai Ehlers, still unsigned. But let's go back to the NBA, and probably the biggest story today is not a player, it's a coach, as the New York Knicks, as Shams Charania put it, landed Mike Brown as their next head coach. I would change that a little bit. I would say settles for. And this is not to disparage Mike Brown. It's really not. But given what the Knicks thought they were going to get after they fired Tom Thibodeau, this is settling. They were rebuffed by a handful of NBA teams that said, get out of here. We're not giving you our head coach. They couldn't get Jay Wright out of retirement. They settled. They settled on Mike Brown. And you could settle for worse. I will say that. The Johnny Bryant, who was all the rage, like right as Tom Thibodeau was getting fired, all of the Knicks fans I saw wanted Johnny Bryant. For what the next head coach of the Knicks is walking into, you at least need a dude that's been around the block before. You're going to throw an assistant coach. And that's nothing to say of Johnny Bryant's capability. He's an assistant, and he's being thrown into a situation where it is get to the NBA Finals or don't leave your house for weeks on end. So I don't think anybody should have taken that Knicks job. But hey, if you're a coach and that's what you do, you coach. So if a job comes open, if it's the worst team in the league, if it's the best team in the league, unfair expectations, realistic expectations, coach is coach. So Mike Brown's going to take that job. And there are certainly worse NBA cities than New York. Right? The prospect of coaching the New York Knicks has got to be quite exciting for Mike Brown. The problem is that he is being put into a very difficult situation because of the expectations I mentioned before. You fired somebody who had brought you success that you hadn't seen in nearly 3 decades. And your answer to getting to the quote unquote next level is a guy that has been fired multiple times by LeBron James, I think, multiple times, if memory. No, just once by LeBron. But a couple of times by teams that LeBron has played for before. Mike Brown's a good coach, but he is not walking into a great situation. And Michael Malone, I don't know that it will make him feel better about it, but I think Michael Malone, on some level, has to be glad that's not him. Because that is a clear situation where you want to be the guy after the guy. The guy after the guy after the guy, I suppose. You don't want to follow Tibbs. Because he's squeezed as much blood out of that New York Knicks turn-up as you possibly could. And all they did in free agency was get Jordan Clarkson. Mike Brown's not going to get more from the New York Knicks than Tom Thibodeau did. He's just not. The Knicks overachieved. That's what James Dolan and his cronies there with the New York Knicks don't understand. They overachieved. Mike Brown's not going to get the same thing, and they're going to run him out of town. And then the sweet spot. You're not following Tibbs. You're following the guy that followed Tibbs and was fired. I don't know if Michael Malone wants to wait that long. But maybe that's where Johnny Bryant comes into play. It's an easier place to be after Mike Brown than after Tom Thibodeau. As far as Michael Malone is concerned, I know that he wasn't a fit in New York. Right? Because all the complaints that you heard out of New York were the same complaints coming out of Denver. Didn't go deep enough on the bench, rode his players too hard, wore on them a little bit, like all of that stuff. Why you would, just because Michael Malone has a championship ring, I don't think it was ever a good reason, and it doesn't seem like Michael Malone was even in consideration by the Knicks. But I'll tell you where I think Michael Malone ends up, if he's willing to wait a little bit. Maybe hang out on ESPN for a little while. I've looked into my crystal ball, and BYU has an incoming freshman. His name is AJ DeBonsta. He is a DeMonsta. Sorry, I won't do that again. This dude's a beast. He's going to be the number 1 pick next year in the draft. The Utah Jazz will be objectively terrible this upcoming season yet again. And they will get the number 1 pick. But Ryan, it's a lottery. the Utah Jazz will get the number 1 pick. And they will take the big man, A.J. DeBonsta, out of BYU. And the Utah Jazz will start winning, but they won't start winning enough. And they'll look at Will Hardy and they'll say, thanks for getting us this far, bud, but it's time for us to get to the next level. And that's when Michael Malone comes back into the league. Because that's the type of job that he is best equipped for. It was the job he took in Sacramento. It was the job he took in Denver. And it will be his next job. He will take on a team that is ready to win, to be a playoff team, to start competing in the playoffs. And that's the type of team he'll take over. And he'll have success. I have no doubt. Michael Malone's a good coach. That's what I have seen in my crystal ball. But like off in the corner, there's like a little dark spot that I can't quite see. And if I look really closely, it's a secondary possibility that Quinn Snyder doesn't get the Atlanta Hawks pointed in the direction they would like to see them go after Atlanta had one of the best off seasons of any team. Put them right up there with Detroit, Houston, and Denver. Hawks have had a great offseason. They're ready to take another step. If Quinn Snyder doesn't, that could be Michael Malone's ticket back into the NBA sooner. The Utah thing, it's got to go a little while. Maybe be a lead assistant somewhere in the meantime. But Michael Malone will be a head coach in the NBA again. He will. And the team that would be smartest to hire him would be one that has a young core that still needs a little bit of development. And they're a team that's desperate to be a factor in either the Western or Eastern Conference. That's what Michael Malone's best suited for. That's not the New York Knicks, and that's a big reason why he didn't get that job. But again, in some ways, he's lucky. Mike Brown, I salute you, man. You were walking into the proverbial hornet's nest with almost zero chance of being successful. 719-247-1313. That brings up another thought here, talking about Michael Malone. Of course, a lot of conversation the last couple of days about Nuggets free agency. How much pressure do you think David Adelman is under this upcoming season? Let's ponder this together here on Extra Sports 1300. What you doing next week? I ask because the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo is coming, and the pro rodeo champions from the U.S. and Canadian circuits, plus national champions from Mexico, are converging here in Colorado Springs, vying for over $1 million in payouts. Competition. It's going to be fierce. And it's one of the big event staples of this city. So if you haven't had a chance to go, or you just would like to go again, I have a 4-pack of tickets. You decide how you divvy them out with the people in your life. But a 4-pack of tickets, it will be to day 1, night 1 at the NFR Open at the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo, Tuesday night. If you'd like to go, text rodeo in your name to 719-247-1313, and I'll hook the 13th texter up with this 4-pack of tickets, and I have them. I got covered. See, got to worry about like people screenshotting things and like counterfeiting. It's okay. You'll be all right. So do that. 13 texter rodeo in your name to 719-247-1313. With the Knicks news today, coupled with the start to free agency for the Denver Nuggets, it got me thinking. You know, the situation in Denver is not much different than New York. It's enough different. I'll say that. Right? The Denver Nuggets had won a title and were fading. They were backsliding. They were regressing under Michael Malone. Right? So there's the biggest difference, and that's the only one you need to say that David Adelman is not necessarily taking the reins of a situation like Mike Brown is. However, the standard is the same. As delusional as you might think Knicks fans are, I don't think they're completely delusional, but I don't think that they're going to make it out of the East this year. Unless they land Giannis, which they very well might, now that I'm thinking about it. But as of right now, but the standard's the same. I don't think anything less. Like if David Adelman coaches this Nuggets team to the Western Conference Finals and they lose, are you going to be thrilled with that? Progress. No, we're not talking progress here. Progress was the interim basis that he took over. That was progress. That was seeing a team, the morale going up, the team maybe locking back in a little bit more. Like there was a lot of good with David Adelman in the short time that he was the interim coach. But now it's like, all right, we're back to normally scheduled programming. And that was before the Nuggets went out and blew everyone away with the offseason that they've had. Right? Even if they ran it back with the idea that they were going to try and turn Julian Strawther into a contributor and turn Deron Holmes into a contributor. The standard was this team, they got to go to the NBA Finals, or else it will not be a successful season. And then they go out and make you feel even stronger about the Nuggets' ability to get out of the West. Like maybe as currently constructed, you would still say, hey, they should make the NBA Finals, but would you really say it with a lot of enthusiasm? Would you really believe it? With what you saw from Oklahoma City, with the moves that the Houston Rockets made, would you truly be able to say that you expect the Denver Nuggets to get to the NBA Finals? Before free agency, I wouldn't say that. After free agency, absolutely saying it. This team should make the NBA Finals, even with Oklahoma City. And I kind of think that Oklahoma City, I'd still take them over the Denver Nuggets. But the expectation is certainly going to the NBA Finals. And I'm having a hard time seeing what the Denver Nuggets are truly missing if the caveat I always throw out there, if Jamal Murray is an all-star caliber player over the course of an 82-game season and not just in the big games or not just in March. In terms of their pieces, I mean, they checked every box, and that's why you give Ben Tenzer and John Wallace so much credit. They needed shooting. They got shooting. They needed backup for Jokic. They got a backup for Jokic. They need to have more flexibility so they can make more moves. They got flexibility so they can make more moves. But now, because of the moves that Ben Tenzer and John Wallace made and the way you feel about those, pressure's back on David Adelman. It's funny how it has kind of ping-ponged back and forth over the last couple of months. Right? Initially, when Josh Kroenke made the decision to fire Calvin Booth and Michael Malone, the pressure was on David Adelman, not on Ben Tenzer. We barely talked about, I mean, we theorized if Ben Tenzer was going to become the GM, but we knew there wasn't a lot of pressure on him. He was just minding the store a little bit. There was nothing a GM could really do in that time. But David Adelman was on the hot seat. David Adelman had the pressure on him. And to his credit, I think he did very well with that pressure. And once the season got over, that pressure moved to the front office. Right? Because it looked like the Nuggets didn't have enough. It didn't look like they were a poorly coached basketball team, and that's why they lost to the Thunder. It looked like they didn't have enough talent, enough shooting, enough defense, perhaps, to knock off Oklahoma City. And most of that job is on the front office. And Ben Tenzer and John Wallace certainly took their lumps. They were under the microscope. And to their credit, I don't know how they could have done a whole lot better, realistically, with their offseason than they've done. If the Nuggets fall short of going to the NBA Finals, out of the co-GMs or David Adelman, who are you putting more blame on? 100% going to be David Adelman. Ben Tenzer and John Wallace did everything that we asked them to do. Now it's on David Adelman to get it all put together. And he's a first time. He's not even Mike Brown. This is his first full season as an NBA head coach. Now, I don't think that. No, I shouldn't say that. There will be people. I don't expect there to be a ton of talk about firing David Adelman after this season, even if they don't make the NBA Finals. But there will be a lot of people wondering if the Nuggets made the right decision. Frank Vogel today just became Jason Kidd's lead assistant. That's somebody who's not only been around the block, he's won a title. And the Nuggets chose David Adelman over him. Now, I think there's, from what you've seen, I think there's a lot of reason to think that David Adelman is going to be able to do a good job. but there will be a lot of people going after him if the Nuggets fall short of expectation, because the roster doesn't look to be the problem. So I think there's more pressure on David Adelman now, don't you think? More than there was when he took over, because we all had extended him like, this is a really tough situation that he's being put in. And I think it was, in many ways, I think he was playing with house money a little bit. Because no matter where the Denver Nuggets exited, it wouldn't be put on him. It'd be put on Josh Kroenke for making a rash, quote unquote, rash decision to fire Michael Malone with 3 games left in the regular season. Or it would go to Calvin Booth because he didn't put together a good enough roster to win. It wouldn't be on David Adelman. It would be understandable if David Adelman made some mistakes or he got out coached. It would be understandable. I don't know that you could blame him if he did. Now it's like, one, you got the full-time gig now. You have an entire offseason. You're putting together your own staff. You're not even keeping Michael Malone, the rest of Michael Malone's staff in place. You're bringing in your own guys, J.J. Barea, Rodney Billups. Whole offseason. And he has a little bit of the weight of, hey, we kind of liked what you did. A lot of people, including myself, thought, you know what? It makes sense to give him the job. You liked what you saw. There's even a little bit of expectation within that, because even though it's his first full season as a head coach, it's not his first experience as a head coach. So he's got to kind of beat what he did last year in a small sample size. And he's got to do it with a roster that everyone is saying, like, this is as good as it's been since the Nuggets won the title. Faith is restored. Bets are coming in. Vibes are high. I think there's a lot of pressure on David Adelman. It's going to be fascinating to see how he deals with it, because I don't think he was ever going to sit up there and get tough questions asked to him. You know, columns written about how terrible he is at his job. I don't think that was going to happen when he took over for Michael Malone. It'll happen this year. So the pressure continues to shift back and forth. Now it's on David Adelman because of the work that Tenzer and Wallace did. And could you imagine if the Nuggets landed LeBron? Be unbearable, the pressure. Speaking it into existence. 719-247-1313. I'll save that for the story for what's driving the show. I don't think that the Nuggets are done yet. Do I think they land LeBron? I think they should. I think they can. But I think we're going to see another. I'll say one more move, because to my earlier point about the development versus bringing in veteran stuff, I think they still want to give Julian Strawther a chance. I think they want to give Peyton Watson a chance. Now, Deron Holmes, they could minimize his playing time and chalk it up to, we're bringing along essentially a rookie slowly. But like Peyton Watson, Julian Strawther, It's go time, especially for Peyton Watson. That dude's got to show a lot this season. So we'll see what they do, because if they bring in like Al Horford, as I was mentioning earlier, I don't know where Peyton Watson's going to get minutes. It might be him or Julian Strawther. And competition can be healthy, I suppose. But we'll see if I do think that the Nuggets will bring in another veteran. How notable, that remains to be seen. And then we'll, kind of reshuffle the deck and see where these young guys are going to get minutes. And right now, I think I may have overreacted a little bit yesterday, because you could still see both Peyton Watson and Julian Strawther on the second unit. They're not completely phased out yet. Jalen Pickett is. That's done. But they bring in another vet. Fewer minutes for the younger guys. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll hit the three stories that are driving the show here on Extra Sports 1300. Hello there. Welcome in. Glad to have you on this Wednesday. Appreciate you tuning in, whether it's on your radio, online at the newly revamped, hipper, chicer, slicker, extrasports1300.com, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app, sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. Congratulations to Sean, who won the 4-pack of tickets to the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo, which begins next week. He did that by texting in at 719-247-1313. Now, right now, the appropriate use of the text line is to discuss things, not to winning. That was the giveaway for the day. But if you want to talk some sports, 719-247-1313. You could call or text into the show using the same number. Perhaps you have a thought or two when it comes to the 3 stories that are driving the show. Story number 1, the Lakers got their big man, DeAndre Ayton, signing with the LA Lakers after being waived by the Portland Trailblazers after they drafted Chinese Jokic. Yep, cause and effect right there. You get Chinese Jokic, DeAndre Ayton, you are no longer. They also have Donovan Clingan. But it's funny, can never have too many big men, and the Blazers are like, yeah, we don't need this big man. So I can say that the Lakers got their big man. I really should say a big man, which they had none. I don't think, even though I think DeAndre Ayton on the offensive end can give something to the LA Lakers, I don't certainly, because anything that the Lakers do is going to be viewed through the prism of, does this please King James? I don't think that DeAndre Ayton alone is going to make LeBron go, I have no issues whatsoever. I'm ready to go. In part because I don't think he's ever going to be satisfied. He never is. The list of now former number 1 picks that he's played with, I mean, it's impressive. And it is a long list. I don't know that the Lakers can do anything to truly appease him. But I can tell you that if the standard is making a championship roster, I don't know that simply adding DeAndre Ayton is enough to do that. So we'll see what else the Lakers are going to do. But meanwhile, you have LeBron James and now Giannis, who are at the same stage of their considering leaving. Here's what I mean by that. They're both supposedly monitoring. Now Giannis is monitoring what the Bucks are doing. Of course, they brought in Miles Turner, who, by the way, better than DeAndre Ayton. So already the Bucks have moved the needle more to keep Giannis than the Lakers have to keep LeBron. But they're both monitoring what the teams do, meaning do more. They're Kylo Ren yelling more. But if these guys want to be on a championship team, and I think with LeBron, Rich Paul has explicitly said that. With Giannis, it's just more, insider reporting, like obvious, but it doesn't take an insider to know that Giannis wants to win another title, right? There aren't that many places that these guys can go. Right? So I got to feel a little bit for the Bucks and for the Lakers, because it's like you're competing against a very small group of teams. And maybe in the end, that's what wins you the day. That no matter what you do, really, there's only a finite number of potential trade partners. And even of those finite number of trade partners, would LeBron and Giannis want to go there? If we're really taking them at their word, and that they were not, well, LeBron's word spoken by Rich Paul, and what we think Giannis wants, how many teams are we talking about? Knicks, Nuggets, Wolves, Thunder, Rockets. For this upcoming season, those are the only 5 teams that you don't have to squint, tilt your head, and say the word if 150 times. If this, if that, if this, if that. Those are the 5 teams that are ready to go right now. Now, you can believe in some over others, but they're all like the Knicks made the Eastern Conference Finals. You could certainly think that they're a championship caliber team if they add LeBron and Giannis. That's what I'm talking about. Cleveland. There's another one. Why do I keep forgetting Cleveland? I'm sorry. I'm not pulling a Sophie Cunningham. Like, I have nothing against the city of Cleveland. Like, clearly she does. You see that, by the way? Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark's new bodyguard, picking up all these followers on social media. What comes with that is you may want to watch what you say. And the fact that she remarked that nobody would be excited going to Detroit or Cleveland because those are the 2 expansion cities for the WNBA. You got a lot more people that are hearing you speak now. Probably not a good idea. I don't have a problem with Cleveland whatsoever. I just keep, for some reason, omitting them from this conversation. New York, Cleveland, Denver, Minnesota, OKC, Houston. Adding LeBron or Giannis, they would be a title contender. Some are title contenders already. Those would be the better landing spots. But some would be if they landed Giannis or LeBron, depending on what the return is. A return for Giannis would decimate the team trading for him. With LeBron, it won't take as much because the Lakers have said as much through their ESPN reporters. They're treating LeBron like a pending free agent. Well, if he's a pending free agent, you're not going to be able to get maximum value for him. He could walk away after this year. But I keep coming back to Denver is about as good of a landing spot for these guys as any of them. Doesn't mean there aren't others. Houston, Minnesota, New York could make one of these 2 moves happen and just trade Cat. I don't know if that's all it would take. But Denver is an even better landing spot for LeBron than it was in 2018. When I think I laid out a pretty good basketball case for LeBron to come to Denver. Apparently, Rich Paul did not relay the message. But these guys are holding their organization's feet to the fire. And it's like, how many places could you go that you would actually be happy? That would actually satisfy what you're looking for? There's not many. And some of those teams would be further away from winning, or would have to give up a ton and maybe take them out of the running for a title by trading for you. Denver doesn't. Jamal Murray, Peyton Watson for LeBron would get it done. Financially, anyway. Man, good thing that the Nuggets made all the moves that they did this offseason, because I would hate to think that Nikola Jokic would start to do this with the Denver Nuggets. I mean, I feel I'm not a fan of Rob Pelinka. I don't think he's particularly great at what he does, but I feel for the guy. It's a lot of pressure. It's a very demanding boss, LeBron. And the Milwaukee Bucks, all they've done is, trade for Damian Lillard. Then they've dumped Damian Lillard for the biggest, stretch, dead cap, whatever you want to call it, in the history of basketball. And then they go out and get Miles Turner. They made their team better. And yet some reports, not good enough. It's tough. Thank goodness Nikola Jokic is not like that and won't turn into that because of the moves that the Nuggets made. Other NBA news today. The Knicks have found their head coach. It is not Michael Malone. It is Mike Brown of LA, Cleveland, Sacramento fame. I don't think that Mike Brown was at the top of the wish list for the New York Knicks. I think he was near the bottom. Good head coach, capable head coach, absolutely. But what the Knicks thought they were going to get, and not Mike Brown. But it was inevitable that this was going to happen. Right? You fired Tom Thibodeau with no plan. You had no plan. You just wanted to be rid of him. What you could say for Josh Kroenke when and Memphis, by the way, for making what seemed to be in many people's minds a rash decision, at least they had a plan. It was going to be David Adelman. Memphis had a guy in mind when they fired Taylor Jenkins. The Knicks just went, no more Tibbs. And then they went, oh, surely Houston will just hand over Ime Udoka. Surely the Dallas Mavericks, as if they haven't received enough negative press already, would just let Jason Kidd walk out the front door. We're the Knicks. Mike Brown, in a lot of NBA situations, would be a good hire. I don't know that he is in New York. Not that he can't handle it on a day-to-day basis. He's good with the media. He's not a first-time head coach. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. He'll be able to handle it okay. I just don't think that he's going to get the Knicks to where they have to go in order for any of this to make any sense. He has to thread the needle and get the Knicks to the NBA Finals. Anything less, and this is an abject failure. And even though James Dolan deserved to be blamed for it, who do you think is going to get blamed for it? Mike Brown. And I said this earlier. I'm sure Michael Malone would have loved to coach the Knicks. I think that maybe he dodged a bit of a bullet. Wait to find a team that's more in your, like on I think you should leave, more in your Q zone. Young nucleus, not the greatest of expectations, but still an expectation of taking that proverbial next step. That's what Michael Malone needs to coach. And when he is back in the NBA, I promise you, it's going to be that kind of a situation. I've identified Utah. Couple years. I don't know if he wants to wait that long, but what other jobs are going to come open? Maybe Atlanta. It's not the right place. No, you want to coach. You don't want any part of that. You want to be the guy that follows Mike Brown. That's what you want to be. And even then, you're still coaching with James Dolan as your owner. I don't know that it's ever an ideal landing spot for any coach. And story number 3 out of the NHL is not really a story because nothing's happening still with the Colorado Avalanche. The late target that has emerged, Nikolai Ehlers, the free agent winger from the Winnipeg Jets, has not decided on his next employer. David Pagnotta from the fourth period, as good as they are when it comes to NHL insiders, an hour ago, Nikolai Ehlers has not yet made a decision. And the more I think through this Nikolai Ehlers thing and what it would be is one of two things. The most unlikely of scenarios is that the Colorado Avalanche sign Nikolai Ehlers for pennies on the dollar for 1 year because he's not getting the money that he thinks he deserves. And then he wants to, maximize his value going into next offseason. Problem is that could be the summer of Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel. So I don't know if that's a great idea from Nikolai Ehlers, but I think more I don't know that he's going to take half what fair market value is to just fit in with this Colorado Avalanche team. But it is one option. The second option, the more likely thing, is that the Avs are kicking the tires here. They're involved with Ehlers with the idea that they would essentially give Ehlers the contract they want to give Necas, but Necas won't sign. And then they turn around and flip Marty Necas to another team. And I've theorized again, could it be Buffalo? They need a bona fide goal scorer. Avs have great affinity for one of the many defensemen that the Buffalo Sabres have. The cap is going to become an issue. And maybe, as you think through all of this stuff, Necas for Byram, if the Avs sign Nikolai Ehlers, makes a ton of sense. But I think that's part of all of this and why the Avs haven't really, why they're seem like they're sitting on the sidelines right now. It's not that. It's just if I have any clue, if what I'm saying is even a little bit true of what the Avalanche are thinking of doing, a lot of moving parts. If they get Ehlers, they got to move Necas yesterday. And they got to make sure if it's Bo Byram, he's got to sign a contract. He's a restricted free agent. Or if it's not Bo Byram, they got to find a trade partner for Necas. Like there's so many things that I think right now Chris McFarland is working on. And we'll see if he pulls it off. He completely rebuilt the goaltender room. He moved Mikko Rantanen. He brought in Brock Nelson. Like the guy can make hockey trades. You may not like all of them, but he can make them. But it seems like he's got to do about 3 or 4 things simultaneously to make this all work. And meanwhile, free agency, the talent pool, it's drying up. All of these depth pieces that you could look at and say, oh, he might be okay for the Colorado Avalanche, they're all going off the board. Because other teams are like, I'm not messing with that. I'm not getting involved in that situation. But the Avs obviously can't. They can't add depth pieces if they're thinking about signing Ehlers. So it's a lot of moving parts. But once Ehlers signs, then I would expect either because it's the Avs who sign him, or if he signs somewhere else, you'll see the Avs start moving. And we'll see what moving looks like. Is it adding depth pieces? Is it an announcement in the coming days about a Marty Necas extension? But until Ehlers goes off the board, I don't know that we're going to get much Avs news. But here's the thing, 719-247-1313. I'll take your thoughts on the three stories that are driving the show and this forthcoming topic. That first scenario that I spun, the idea of adding Ehlers just on the third line, right? Sounds great. Do the Avs need him? Or are they built right now to win it all? We survey the free agent landscape. Did anybody that the Avs would be going up against get better? I know one team did. I don't know how many others. Talk about next here on Extra Sports 1300. Happy birthday, America. Celebrate big with a chance at $5,000 in the Red, White, and Win giveaway. To enter this national contest, just head to extrasports1300.com now. Red, White, and Win, sponsored locally by H&H Tires and Window Nation. 719-247-1313 is the number if you'd like to weigh in on things. Tom texting, could you please do some kind of poll with your listeners about who wants LeBron and who doesn't? If the vote is no, you have to stop talking about it, please. Well, first of all, Tom, it won't stop me. I do not adhere to these rules. But I can acquiesce to your first request right now. Let's take an informal poll right now. Would you want LeBron for Jamal Murray? Who says no? And you could be the you. You could be the who. I mean, LeBron for Jamal Murray, who says no? I vote yay. Tom, you have a supporter because clearly you don't want LeBron on the team. From the 719, no to LeBron. He gets coaches fired and players traded. He wants to be in control. But can he be? Can he be? Because this is even a reason why an argument to be made on why the Lakers are acting the way that they are. And all this stuff coming out about they're treating him like an expiring contract. They're building around Luka. I think LeBron's control over this organization has lessened. Now, maybe not to the point that he can't ask out. Maybe not to the point that they're trying to do things to appease him. But thanks to Nico Harrison, they have a life post LeBron. I don't know that his control over the Lakers is even what it was. And I think it would be even less going to another team. Maybe not Cleveland for obvious reasons. But do you think that LeBron would have the level of power in Denver? And it goes back to, I got a text a couple of days ago. I think it's a very interesting question regarding LeBron. Does he really want to play, in some ways, second fiddle? Right? If he goes to Denver, there's no doubt who the best player is. There's no doubt who has the ball in his hands with time winding down. There's no doubt who the more beloved superstar is. Like, he'd be second on any of those lists, at least. Does he want to be that? And if he's okay with being it, then guess what that comes with? Less control. So I think LeBron still has sway over the Lakers, still has some level of control, not maybe as much as he used to, and going to a new place, unless it's a place like Cleveland, I don't know that will he have the same level of control in Golden State with Steph there? Minnesota would be an interesting one. New York, he would. New York, he would, to be fair. But the getting coaches fired and demanding this and that, I don't know how effective truly it is. It's somewhat effective, but you could even argue that getting DeAndre Ayton is helping out, is appeasing, not appeasing because Luka's not complaining, but helping out Luka, building your team for the Luka Lakers. Alliteration. As much as it is appeasing LeBron. As much as it is trying to win this year. So it's hard to kind of untangle how much of what the Lakers are doing is to pacify LeBron James, how much of it is trying to win this year, which would then pacify LeBron James, and how much of it is them saying we're making this move not for this year, but for the future. DeAndre Ayton's only on a 2-year deal. So I think it's kind of all of the above. But I think some of the LeBron stuff, the control and firing coaches, I don't know that he can do that. I think you can look at LeBron more as a basketball player than you have in recent years. And that's on him, right? Like, LeBron's brought a lot of this on himself. But I think you can really look at this more as a basketball move, because I don't think LeBron has the ability at his age to be able to go into a championship contending team and demand this, and that. Part of the reason why he can't in LA is because they're forever indebted to him, because he saved that organization. And two, they can't seriously look at themselves in the mirror and say, without LeBron James, we can compete. Because guess what? The Lakers aren't a championship level team with LeBron. But other teams like Denver, Minnesota, OKC, not that it would ever happen, but they're like, we think we can win a title without LeBron. If LeBron wants to be a part of this, some of those organizations may love to have him. From the 719, no to LeBron would be a huge mistake. All right, 3 no's. So we'll do this. Tom, how about this? I am nothing if not fair. I will not bring up the idea of LeBron going to the Nuggets for the rest of the show. I am nothing if not fair. But I will bring up Dame, because the text comes in. How about Dame to the Nuggets? Not like Denver would be needing to give much up. I talked about this yesterday, and my thought on Damian Lillard is yes, 100%. 100%, yeah. Because there's no, to your point, they don't have to give up anything. Milwaukee's paying the freight here. He's going to sign for the vet minimum somewhere. And extra bonus when it comes to the Denver Nuggets and Damian Lillard. They don't need Damian Lillard to be the Damian Lillard of old. They can have a slightly lesser version at his age and coming off of the Achilles than, like, you know, I see some of the teams like Golden State. Golden State would need Dame to be Dame time if they're going to truly be in the championship mix. Miami the same way. I think a team like Detroit or Orlando would need him to be a better version of Damian Lillard than the Nuggets would in order to win. So I absolutely do think that the Nuggets should be, I mean, they'd be insane not to at least check in with him. Bring in Damian Lillard with the second unit. Damian Lillard, Brucey B, Tim Hardaway Jr., Jonas Valanciunas. Yeah, the Nuggets should 1,000% be calling Damian Lillard. Do I think that the Nuggets will get Damian Lillard? No, I do not. No, I do not. Because first and foremost, I don't think Damian Lillard is going to sign anywhere. Or I'll put it this way, because I'm not in Damian Lillard's head. if I were advising you, I would say, why are you signing now? Don't sign now. It's not like you're trying to maximize your contract. This way, there's no pressure to come back this year. Rehab on your own time with your family in Portland, which he is doing. Reassess the landscape. There's Damian Lillard. He's going to be one of the top free agents because I don't know if you've noticed this. Free agency in the NBA, I mean, we're going nuts because of what the Nuggets have done, but really look at it. It's Jonas Valanciunas. It's it's not even Jonas. Tim Hardaway Jr. It's our only free agent signing. Free agency is not what it once was. Now you can make trades. We saw Kevin Durant leave and get traded. Nuggets have made multiple trades. But Damian Lillard, as a free agent, he might be the best on the board a year from now. But it's not about again, it's still not about getting the most money possible, but it's that everyone is going to be clamoring for him. I legitimately don't know a team that wouldn't be interested in Damian Lillard's services. But you could lop off probably 2/3 of the NBA that Damian Lillard will not want to play for. And then within that third, is there an ideal fit? Right? He didn't want to go to Milwaukee. His family's in Portland. Got to feel like this is a Western United States thing. A Denver, a Utah, a Phoenix, a Golden State, Lakers, Clippers, Blazers, Kings. I'm not saying that he'd be interested in all these teams, but I feel like they got to fit that footprint. But really, if his family's in Portland, it's like there's no quick flight to get to Portland. That's a ways from everywhere. But I would say that Damian Lillard should just wait it out. Could he sign somewhere mid-season? Maybe. But the Nuggets should absolutely be calling up Damian Lillard and his representatives. Because even, and I'm even going in with a fairly realistic expectation of about what he is at this stage of his career. I think there are going to be fan bases and teams that are going to expect him to be, the Dame time. And I don't, unfortunately, at his age with this injury, I don't think that he's going to be. He's not a face of the he's not going to be a face of the franchise guy. He's not. I mean, maybe at this point, I mean, the great what if is Milwaukee, like we never saw what they would be. But now, or a year from now, like Damian Lillard might not even be able to be a number 2 on a championship level team. Denver Nuggets don't need him to be. 719-247-1313. I do want to get to the Avs conversation. We can continue it tomorrow based on whether there is news to report. But all this talk about Ehlers, and I get the Natchez part of this, trying to get somebody in your top 6 secured. But as of right now, couldn't you make the argument that the Avs are the favorite to come out of the West? We'll discuss that next here on Extra Sports 1300. Celebrate the Switchbacks Independence Day Fireworks Spectacular with a 360-degree immersive fireworks experience from the field after the Switchbacks take on Eastern Conference leading Louisville City. Make sure you're there at 6 p.m. when the gates open, because the first 2,000 fans through the gates will get a limited edition Switchbacks bucket hat. Tickets available for now at switchbacksfc.com. I just saw this because our phones are listening to us. I don't know if you've noticed that, but they do. And it could also just be that I engage with a lot of NBA content on social media, that I get suggested these things. They pop up. I get algorithmed. One sportsbook does have the Nuggets with the third best odds to get Damian Lillard. Best odds, Miami Heat. Right? That's where he wanted to go in the first place. I don't know how you can get further from Portland than Miami, but, you know. None of my business. Just, I know geography. That's a long way. But that's where he wanted to go. He wanted to go to Miami, and he got dealt to Milwaukee. So Heat makes sense. And then the homecoming of him going back to Portland, and then Denver. And if that's really what he's deciding between, which it's not, it's, you know, these are betting odds, not Damian Lillard saying these are the three teams I'm considering. I mean, how could you not say, I mean, no state tax in Florida. We got to say that. But again, it's not about money. So this actually might be a time where having an insanely high income tax rate is not an impediment necessarily. So Denver can't beat Miami. I'm sorry. If you're a young, rich person, Miami's better than Denver. And I love Denver and I love Colorado. If I had millions of dollars, I would be in Miami, Florida, like I just would. If I were in Damian Lillard's shoes, I would be in Miami, certainly. And by the way, he doesn't have to live there all the time, right? Like he could live in Portland and work in Miami. Again, he is like a uber millionaire. But basketball wise, I mean, that franchise, are they really going anywhere? Is the needle pointing up with the Miami Heat? They're not even the best team in the state of Florida right now. And think about that. If you have little hope and you're in the Eastern Conference, then you need to do something. This thing is like wide open. Nobody likes anybody. Cleveland are chokers. The Knicks are a garbage organization. Halliburton has a torn Achilles. Jason Tatum has a torn Achilles. And the Boston Celtics are dumping players like candy from a parade float. Like, if you can't make a case for at least competing to get out of the East, then you're not in a good spot. And that's where the Miami Heat are right now. And then you go to Portland, like, come on. Not now. Not now. Let Damian Lillard go for a ring or two before he goes back to Portland. In fact, you know what? He doesn't have to ever go back to Portland. That guy gave that organization way longer than any of us wanted him to give that. We wanted Damian Lillard gone 2 years before he had finally left. He can come back in his jersey retirement. So he doesn't need to go play for the Blazers. So if these odds are in any way indicative of what Damian Lillard may be deciding between, I mean, I'd eliminate Portland already, and I'd say Miami or Denver. What do you want? Nightlife or a ring? It is a difficult decision, though. Like I will say, I'm saying it's easy, but I feel like Damian Lillard at this point in his career may prioritize one or the other. But they're just betting odds. Take them for what they are worth. So there was something else I wanted to get to, and I was going to save the Avs conversation for tomorrow. I guess I won't. We'll get into a little bit here. Think about this. The Avs clearly are trying to make a significant move. Feels like it's based around Nikolai Ehlers. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. You know who we talked about the other day? That Pittsburgh guy. But clearly the Avalanche are trying to pull off something of significance, or else we would see them picking up Gustav Nyquist and Pius Suter and like the Cody Glass, like all of these depth pieces that keep going off the board. The Avalanche aren't engaging in those guys. Throw in Jonathan Drouin. Put him in there. I mean, these depth forwards are signing left and right, these third, fourth line guys, and the Avalanche aren't doing anything. Why? Because they're trying to do something more significant that they wouldn't be able to do if they signed up even one of these depth forwards. So clearly the Avs are trying to do something of significance. Will they be successful? That remains to be seen. But look at the landscape in the West. Vegas is Vegas, right? They get Mitch Marner. They did lose Pietrangelo, but their blue line's still pretty strong. They got Eichel. They got Marner. Vegas is certainly on the short list of teams that could win a Stanley Cup and can certainly represent the West. But betting odds say Florida, obviously, as the betting favorite. You know who right now is second, having done nothing this offseason? The Avalanche. Better than Edmonton, better than Vegas. Go on down the list. The Avs. So clearly there's belief, whether it's from the sports books or the people who are giving the sports books their money, because odds are adjusted for both reasons. Clearly there's belief that the Avs are de facto the favorite to come out of the West because Florida is the only team with better odds than them. So we'll see what this move of significance, if it is Ehlers, if it is something else, if it actually comes to fruition. But here's the thing. If you're lamenting at all that the Avs aren't doing anything, especially compared to what the Nuggets are, tell me what other than Vegas, tell me what other Western Conference contender is better than they were yesterday, better than they were 2 days ago. Dallas hasn't cratered. They didn't trade Jason Robertson, but they aren't adding anybody. Edmonton lost all of these key depth pieces, Kane and Perry, and they get Mark Giappani, and they're trying to replace him, but I don't know that their depth is better now than it was in the Stanley Cup final. Winnipeg just added Gustav Nyquist, and they added Jonathan Toews. I have no idea what Jonathan Toews is going to be this year. And I've seen that movie. I'll take the Avs over Winnipeg. You have the biggest spending teams, the teams that are making the most headlines through the first couple of days of free agency are Anaheim, who is nowhere close to the Avs level, and LA, who everyone is pointing and laughing at them for the decisions that they've made. So the Kings aren't better. So Winnipeg, not better. Dallas, not better. Colorado, sure. Not better than they were to end the Dallas Stars series. But they also aren't losing anything. What did the Avs lose this offseason? Jonathan Drouin. So Avs are okay. But we'll see if they do make moves. And if they're not able to pull off Ehlers or make another significant deal, then they need to get to work because they have a shortage of forwards on their roster. That'll be it for today. Appreciate your pay. What a great week of conversation. Hopefully some news breaks over the next 24 hours so we can chat it up again tomorrow. Enjoy your evening.